Hello and welcome. My name is Amy Kovler, and I'm the chair of the board of directors of the PCD Foundation. On behalf of the board, I would like to thank you for joining us this evening. Tonight would not be possible without the help of some amazing people. I'd like to begin by thanking our generous sponsors. It is because of your kindness and generosity that we are together this evening, advancing the mission of the PCD Foundation. While we hope to be with you in person, we're beyond excited to come together virtually to celebrate our accomplishments. We're thrilled to share with you how the Foundation is moving forward in hopes you'll continue to join us in the fight against PCD. It is with your help that we are where we are today. 3 years ago, we hosted an event with a goal of raising the funds necessary to start our clinical registry. Thanks to your philanthropic support, I'm thrilled to say the registry is launched and our first patient was registered last week. This is no small feat and one that could not happen without your generosity. Our registry is our path to a cure I've been razor focused on as I was 28 weeks pregnant with our second baby, Alexandra Lily, when it was determined that her heart was located on the right instead of the left. The next 11 weeks of my pregnancy were the longest of my life, but on December 14th, 2012, Alexandra was born. In our eyes, she was a perfect baby girl, but endless tests and confirmation her organs were reversed eventually led to a diagnosis of PCD. As I reflect on being a PCD parent, I do so today with great admiration for Alexandra. Like many PCD families, mine is well versed in managing chronic coughing, endless ear infections, a constant runny nose, and shortness of breath. Shortness of breath, something now top of mind across the world. As a hallmark symptom of COVID-19, respiratory health is of the utmost importance. Each one of us is now acutely aware of what tightness in the chest or trouble breathing may feel like, and what that may mean for our long-term health and well-being. These last 9 months have challenged all of us greatly, but they have also given me an incredible insight to what some of my daughter experiences on a daily basis. Thankfully, Alexandra's amazing. She just made the gymnastics competitive team and is a great student. However, at the age of 8, she's had 9 ear surgeries and slowly diminishing lung capacity. This is scary, yet I know the work of the PCD Foundation is making a difference in her life. They are committed to finding a cure, and I know with your philanthropic support to enable their efforts, this will happen in Alexandra's lifetime. We've set an ambitious event goal this evening of raising $200,000. Given you're here with us, we acknowledge your commitment and partnership in this effort. If you have made a donation already, thank you. There's still time to help us reach our goal, and I'm excited to share an opportunity to double your impact. Thanks to the generosity of individual PCD board members, all new gifts made this evening will be matched, dollar for dollar, until midnight. Gifts can be made online through our event page, or if you opted in to receive text messages, you can make your gift directly from your phone. We have a wonderful program for you, beginning with a discussion with PCD leaders who will introduce us to a Path to Clinical Trials program. It's my privilege to introduce the Executive Director and founder of the PCD Foundation, Michelle Mannion, and the Director of the PCD Foundation Clinical Centers Network, an Associate Professor in Pediatric Respiratory Medicine at McGill University in Montreal, Canada, Dr. Adam Shapiro.
Thank you so much, Amy. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Adam Shapiro. Dr. Shapiro is a pediatric pulmonologist, or respirologist as they're known in Canada, and he works from McGill University, Montreal Children's Hospital. He's a specialist in treating genetic disorders of the airways, including cystic fibrosis and primary ciliary dyskinesia. And like many of the really exceptional people that we've had in our orbit for PCD, we first met Dr. Shapiro when he was doing his pediatric pulmonary fellowship at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. We started working closely with him at that point on research projects and programs ultimately designed to enhance our access to research for patients and to cures. So Dr. Shapiro has been instrumental in helping us launch our premier program, which is our Path to Clinical Trials program. And this consists of two components. The first is a robust clinical centers network of now more than 30 top-tier North American sites that can do PCD diagnosis and treatment and have expertise in treating PCD. And then through these sites, our clinical registry, which will help us collect data on patients and understand this disease better and find therapeutic targets as we search for the cure. Welcome, Dr. Shapiro.
Oh, thank you so much. Thanks for that lovely introduction. It's nice to be here.
Yes, let me know if I missed anything.
No, nothing.
Okay. So we've known each other for a long time and have talked at length about the importance of research and getting it done correctly and having the right services and tools available for patients. Can you speak a little bit, thinking of the center's notion here, why it's important to have expert sites for PCD diagnosis and treatment, and how these sites benefit families?
So the first thing is this type of idea of establishing expert centers for a rare disease has been pioneered by multiple other diseases, and the prototypical one in the pediatric world was cystic fibrosis. About 40 years ago, the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, which started as a group of motivated parents who wanted to help their children, got together and engaged research experts as well as clinical experts, people that were willing to learn about this disease, and establish clinical centers where you could get reliable diagnosis and reliable therapies per state-of-the-art medical knowledge. As a result of that network in cystic fibrosis, they now have therapies which are almost curative of this disease in about 90% of their population. Again, that took about 30, 40 years, but that's where we want to be. So providing PCD expert centers provides patients with three things. The first thing is it provides them with solid diagnoses. It is very hard to diagnose this disease in all cases. It is very easy to misdiagnose another disease as PCD, and it's very easy to give the wrong therapies if you have the wrong diagnosis. The second thing we want people to have is access to therapies that we think will be beneficial. This is not a one-size-fits-all disease. There are some people that do better with some therapies than others, and this disease is different from cystic fibrosis and other chronic airway diseases. So we want people to go to centers where they can get the state-of-the-art knowledge on what therapies seem to work, what therapies may be harmful, and what therapies are most appropriate for their child or adult with this disease. And the third thing is we really want these people to belong somewhere. This is an orphan disease that is often overlooked. Many respirologists or pulmonologists see one or two cases in their career and treat it as they would any other disease. And we want people to belong in a place, to know that they're not that rare, there are other people like them out there, and know that they have a home base that can coordinate all of their cares.
So you've established for us why centers are important. So now when we look at the package of the centers with a registry, can you speak a little bit to how that model is so important for accelerating research?
So the PCD Foundation centers are how you diagnose the disease. And in fact, as Mike Knowles, who I guess I can call the granddaddy of PCD, once said to me, if you can't diagnose it, you can't treat it. So by getting all of the PCD patients in North America to expert centers and giving them reliable diagnosis, we build a huge cohort of patients that we can then engage in future learning and research. The more and more patients we see, the more and more we'll start to learn about this disease. We'll start to see that some patients have one gene defect that causes a worse outcome, whereas others have a milder gene defect that might not cause as bad an outcome. And we start to then speculate on why does that happen? What pathway makes these people so much worse? And when you identify that group of people, if you feed them into a registry, a place that can be recorded with all of these different aspects of their health, you can start to say, okay, we now know this group is worse. We now know they have a pathway that probably makes them worse. And now we have a medication that might block that pathway and maybe provide some relief to this disease burden. And by having the registry with all this information, it's a quick search to see, aha, there are 18 people across the United States and Canada with this that we could research more. And we're going to contact their local centers, have them contact these people and see if they're interested in doing this specific research project.
We've talked about why the centers are so important. And I think for all of us, one of the most gratifying things that we've encountered with this whole process is how many really outstanding sites want to be a part of this network for this very rare disease, in more sites than we can actually manage with our current size. But can you talk a little bit about site selection, what criteria we use and why it's important to get the right sites to be part of the network?
So first off, a lot of the sites that are coming to us are highly academic sites that have built research and clinical careers in cystic fibrosis. And that's very important because as much as PCD isn't cystic fibrosis, there are some similarities between the two, especially the multidisciplinary care model where you have physicians, nurses, respiratory therapists, nutritionists, everyone involved in treating a kid with CF. We really think that works well when you treat a patient, adult or pediatric, with PCD. And so a lot of these centers, it usually is a young doctor who is motivated and excited to really get their feet wet in a new disease. They have a good understanding of chronic airway diseases like CF, and they approach us and say, look, we're a great institution, we've done a lot, and we want to get involved in PCD. After that, we really need site support. So the physician, as motivated as they are, cannot do this alone. They need support from the whole infrastructure of their site. And many sites are good at that because they've done this with other diseases like cystic fibrosis. And then after that, we want to make sure that the right equipment is there. One of the biggest is being a nasal nitric oxide analyzer, which is a really good test to try and separate the masses of people with chronic infections from viruses or asthma versus people with infections from PCD. And then we want really solid genetic testing support with a dedicated clinical geneticist, as well as the ability to do electron microscopy on nasal ciliary biopsies to look at the structure of cilia. So when all of that coalesces and all of that comes together and the academic support is there and the institution has made a real commitment to treating PCD in a multidisciplinary manner by giving the right supports, then we go ahead and invite them to submit an application and have an accreditation visit.
Could you talk a little bit about what you see as the future for PCD research and therapies in both the short term and the long term?
I think it's going to evolve a lot like cystic fibrosis. So the way cystic fibrosis first started was you would treat the symptoms, treat the infections, treat the inflammation. And then as we started to learn more and more about the disease, they shifted. And there's these whole new category of molecules and therapies called CFTR correctors that go in and actually treat the dysfunctional protein that causes CF. So they're no longer treating the problems, they're treating the root cause of the problem. And I think that's how PCD is going to evolve. Over the next few years, we're going to see more and more research to treat the acute symptoms, something to decrease infections, inhaled medications called mucolytics that help to break up mucus and make it easier to cough out. The good news is a lot of the companies out there that we're working on mucolytics and different anti-inflammatories for cystic fibrosis are starting to now pivot to PCD now that most of the patients with CF, about 90%, have this treatment, which is almost curative. And they're approaching us, and we're working with the foundation as well as other members of the PCD research community to decide which of these agents are going to be most effective, because we want to do good research that's efficacious for patients. The long term, I'm hoping, is going to be just like cystic fibrosis, where we stop treating the symptoms but go and treat the root cause. And that root cause is going to be, hopefully, agents that can go in and improve ciliary function, perhaps stimulate ciliary beat, perhaps make cilia beat more in unison to actually propel mucus up. And eventually, the holy grail is some type of genetic therapy. That involves us having to already know all of the genes causing this. We have 50 genes now. We keep discovering new ones every few months. So once we know most of the genes that cause this, I think people will start looking at therapies to go in and actually correct the genetic problems and thereby treat the actual root cause of the PCD and not just the effects downstream.
Thank you. I know that's what we're all hoping for, and hopefully in the very near future. Do you have any closing thoughts you'd like to share?
Yeah, first off, I just want to thank all of the people with PCD that have been so active already in the PCD Foundation. We have learned so much about this disease in the last 15 years. It's just mind-boggling how much more there is to learn, though. And so I would plead with everyone who has a family member involved with this to be involved in research. don't do anything that makes you uncomfortable. But when people approach you about research, at least hear them out, listen to them, think of a way you can make this work for your family so that you can be involved in these projects, because that is the only way this will keep advancing. If cystic fibrosis patients hadn't been incredibly motivated to do all this research, we would never have the cures we have. So in a way, this is in all of our hands. We actually can do something about it. So please, please, please don't hesitate to get involved and at least explore the possibility of being in research projects.
A small community, it's up to us. There is no one else that can do this research for us. So thank you so much for those thoughts.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shapiro. Now I'd like to pivot just a bit and introduce somebody that's very special to the PCD community, Dr. Margaret Lee from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Dr. Lee has been involved with our group for many, many years and has been instrumental in really putting PCD research on the map in North America. Dr. Lee will be presenting a special award, and without further ado, here's Dr. Margaret Lee.
Hello everyone, my name is Margaret Lee and I go by my nickname McGee. I am a recent addition to the PCD Foundation Board of Directors. It is my great pleasure to introduce Stephanie Davis, the recipient of the 2020 PCD Award. I know Stephanie quite well. 21 years ago, when Stephanie was finishing her pediatric pulmonary fellowship training, I recruited her to come to UNC and then mentored her as she launched her academic career. I remember attending a national scientific meeting with the then very young Stephanie Davis and telling her that soon she would be giving scientific presentations. And then I added, in fact, I predict that one day you will be leading the program. She looked at me in disbelief, but I could see the wheels turning. She did all of that and just kept going. In 12 years at UNC, she advanced from assistant professor to associate professor to fellowship training director to division chief. She then went to Indiana for 7 years, where she was professor, division chief, and vice chair of clinical affairs. In 2018, Stephanie returned to UNC as chair of the Department of Pediatrics. I am so proud of her and all that she has done over the past 21 years. So, who is Stephanie Davis? First and foremost, she's a pediatrician. She lives by the mantra of doing what is good for the children. But she's not just a pediatrician. She is secretary-treasurer of the American Board of Pediatrics, and she is president of the Society of Pediatric Research. Stephanie is a pediatric pulmonologist, but she's not just a pediatric pulmonologist. She has been chair of the Pediatric Assembly of the American Thoracic Society. Stephanie's a clinical investigator with special interest and expertise in early lung disease, in PCD, as well as in cystic fibrosis and bronchopulmonary dysplasia. She has written close to 200 manuscripts, but is lead author on multiple key PCD manuscripts. She was the organizer for the first International PCD Scientific Conference in 2010, funded by the NIH. She, with Tom Furcall, is a PI for the recent renewal of the Genetic Disorders of Mucociliary Clearance Disorders grant from NIH for $5.7 million funding PCD research. She's very people-oriented. She connects with people, no matter where they are in their lives. She inspires the learners, the medical students, the residents. She motivates those of us who are older to keep going and pushing. She energizes everybody around her. She has boundless energy that is just contagious, and she networks. She knows who's going to work well together, how to bring out the most and best in everybody. Those people skills really define who Stephanie is, why she is so special, and how she's been able to accomplish so much. I am so sorry that this presentation must be done virtually. I know that each of you would thoroughly enjoy interacting with Stephanie in person. So, Dr. Stephanie Duggins Davis, I am very proud and honored to present you with this PCD award. PCD stands not only for primary ciliary dyskinesia, but also passion, care, and dedication. You are so deserving of this award.
Thank you, thank you. I would really like to thank my former mentor and really great friend and collaborator, Margaret Lee, for introducing me. Dr. Lee is absolutely the reason I'm involved in primary ciliary dyskinesia care and research. She's been an amazing international leader that has advanced PCD care. I am extremely humbled and honored to receive the 2020 PCD Foundation Award. I've been involved in PCD work for over 15 years, and it's been truly amazing to see the progress in diagnosis, treatment, and overall awareness of this rare genetic disease. I have had the privilege of working closely with the PCD Foundation, having attended many conferences, family events, as well as through our research collaborations. The partnership between our research consortium, the Genetic Disorders of Mucociliary Clearance Consortium, initially created by Mike Knowles and Margaret Lee, and the PCD Foundation has been crucial in advancing our understanding of this rare disease. The foundation, founded by Michelle Mannion and Lynn Ernie in 2001, has been absolutely tenacious in achieving its mission of improving the quality of life of those affected by PCD and ultimately in finding a cure. Over the last nearly 20 years, awareness has been raised about this rare disease with the development of approximately 30 clinical centers of excellence across North America. A registry was recently created. Scientific conferences have been attended by investigators from all over the world. Diagnosis of the disease has incredibly improved, with approximately 50 genes identified, and clinical trials have been conducted. Several young investigators are now leading PCD centers, and I am so proud of Adam Shapiro, who is helping the foundation lead these efforts. These advancements have occurred due to the strong leadership at the PCD Foundation. I am truly grateful for the exceptional collaborative partnership that our consortium has with the foundation. My very good friend, Tom Ferkel, and I are blessed to have such great partners across North America as we continue to pursue research advances over the next several years through the consortium. Personally, I have been inspired by the dedication of Michelle Mannion, Lynn Ernie, Amy Kofler, Carrie Kaufman, Gary Jorner, Billy Anton, and many, many others. Thank you for allowing me to work with you and for inspiring us to find a cure. I would also like to thank my absolutely wonderful family, my parents, my great husband, Sam, and my fantastic 3 sons, Harrison, Jackson, and Parker, for really supporting me during my career. Finally, the true heroes are the patients, the parents, and the families impacted by this rare disease. Thank you for all you've taught me and others every single day. You are the true heroes. I am truly grateful and humbled.
Congratulations, Dr. Davis. You've made such an impact on our disease, and we thank you for your partnership and endless effort to advance our mission. Next, we're going to share a video featuring some of our incredible PCD patients that are living with this disease and the providers that are tirelessly working on treatments.
I think most people, when they see Riley, he looks just like a normal kid. He acts like a normal kid. My pregnancy with Riley was very normal. He was 8 pounds, 4 ounces, and seemed completely healthy at first. It wasn't until 12 hours in that the nurse said, wow, he really breathes very fast. He was in the NICU for 25 days, and he was misdiagnosed with children's interstitial lung disease. We actually had an insurance change, which ended up being a blessing and took us to St. Louis Children's Hospital. When we got there, the doctors were like, I don't think this is what he has. We think he has primary ciliary dyskinesia. And we're like, okay, what is that?
So basically the way I explain it to families, certainly when I want to do testing or diagnostic testing of their children, is I basically say it's a rare inherited lung disease where affected people are unable to clear secretions from their middle ear, their sinuses, and their lungs, which leads to a persistent infection.
So they did a ciliary biopsy, and then on his second birthday, they called and said, hey, this is it. This is what he has, is PCD. You know, it's good to have an answer, but yet scary at the same time to be starting a new path. Luckily, right away, I did find the PCD Foundation's website and was able to connect with Michelle Mannion, the president. That was just really good to be able to make a connection, especially with a parent who had been in my shoes at one point herself.
The PCD Foundation is the only voluntary health organization for individuals with primary ciliary dyskinesia in North America right now, and we are focused on accelerating research so that we can improve the quality of life for people with PCD and get treatments and cures. One of the first things that we recognize as an obstacle for PCD to move forward with research is that we had a big problem with missed diagnosis and misdiagnosis. So we knew we needed to get a handle on the diagnostic problem right away.
The key to treating any chronic disease is to make the diagnosis as early as possible. If you can make the diagnosis, number one, you're dealing with an expert who knows how to treat the disease with available therapies. If you can make the diagnosis early, you can prevent damage in the lung.
My parents started taking me to see an ear, nose, throat doctor at a fairly early age. And, you know, some of it just seemed like maybe it was normal kid stuff with maybe having to have tubes in the ears, tonsils, adenoids, that kind of thing. But things just kept going. I was diagnosed when I was 17. I'm 52 now. I just always felt like this is just how it is for me. And how do I find a way to work around it as best I can? I find now I'm having a little harder time with, coming to grips of not being able to do as much. I am currently being followed by the lung transplant team at Hopkins. You know, I'm getting closer to needing a double lung transplant. The hardest days are days that I almost just can't get out of bed. Last year, my husband and I walked the New York Marathon together with the idea of raising awareness for PCD. And he was carrying the extra batteries for me. And when, excuse me. Pardon me. So that's part of PCD for me. When we were engaged, I remember my husband just very lovingly looking at me, and he was like, so, you know, what's the prognosis for this disease? And I said, you know, just a little harder to breathe at times, you know, that's it. And, you know, he was very sweet. He said, you know, if I only had 3 years, you know, to be with you, you know, I want to be with you for those 3 years. Yeah.
I'm very grateful that we did finally get the correct diagnosis, because I think without having these therapies, unfortunately, I think he would be much sicker than what he is.
We made the decision as a board and as a patient advocacy group that it wasn't enough to just have treatments available for people. They had to be the best treatment and the most effective treatment, and to be actually helpful.
You need to have physicians who understand this disease, who understand the clinical manifestations, the diagnostic testing, potential therapies, to be able to provide the best possible care of people who are supported by the PCD Foundation. They have created these centers of excellence so we can provide the best possible care, but also identify people with primary center dyskinesia.
You're moving people to where the expertise is instead of trying to make everybody an expert, because that is never going to happen.
Finding these centers really does help improve the quality of Riley's life.
We will have a registry that is going to allow us to identify future subjects.
Having a registry where we can learn more. I mean, we really don't even know how many PCD patients have had transplants. We also don't know how many infants have died from PCD.
We can analyze those data. We can understand better what the nature of the disease is, which patients benefit most from the different available therapeutics. It's important because we are now establishing a clinical network that has the ability to recruit patients into clinical trials that are industry sponsored.
Being Riley's mom is very inspiring to see this kid that has gone through more medical treatment than most people do in their whole lives in the last 12 years. There's obviously stress to having someone with a chronic condition, especially knowing there isn't a cure, that, you know, as a mother, it really breaks your heart.
Megan, my daughter, is going to wake up every day feeling like she has the worst sinus infection and bronchitis that I've ever had. And she's going to face that every day of her life for the rest of her life while her lungs are slowly getting worse. And, there's a big emotional burden to that too. And I don't think most people sit and think it through that way, but that's what they're facing. That's what PCD patients are facing every day. And anything that can help alleviate some of that stress and make them feel more positive about the future would be fantastic.
An awful lot of people who care for patients with primary ciliary dyskinesia also care for patients with cystic fibrosis. We've seen what these new therapies, these CFTR modifying therapies have done for the lives of people with cystic fibrosis. And so you just kind of go, why not PCD?
I am absolutely convinced that if we can get continued support for the PCD Foundation, we can make patients' lives better. We can have patients be less sick. Quality of life is going to improve. New therapeutics are going to develop. And ultimately, I predict, as we've seen in cystic fibrosis, that new therapeutics are going to mean a whole change in the lifestyle of patients with PCD.
Just hope for him to have a normal life like any other kid, and not to let this illness stop him from, accomplishing any of his dreams. That's why we just want to keep fighting with the PCD Foundation to ultimately find a cure for these kiddos.
Even if it wasn't going to make a big difference for me because of the damage already, to me it's still worth participating because it's going to make a difference for others.
All of these people care so much about our kids. It really touches you. We just appreciate any support that anyone can give to the PCD Foundation.
We're going to clear the way for PCD patients to have better clinical outcomes, and that's going to be achieved through the PCD Foundation developing more clinical centers, more data collection by the PCD registry, and the development of better therapeutics through clinical trials at these centers.
Clear the way for a brighter future.
Cleared the way for my health.
Cleared the way for a cure.
Tonight is more than just a virtual benefit. It's a night to clear the way. To clear the way for knowledge of a rare disease, to clear the way for empowerment of patients, to clear the way to more research and treatments. But most importantly, it's to clear the way to a cure. We thank you for joining us on our path to clear the way. Your philanthropic support inspires and enables our progress, and we so appreciate you taking this journey with us.